You are listening to Holy Sync Radio Podcast. Today's podcast, Surrender Before the Song.
Today's the day. Countdown season has begun on Holy Sync Radio, and today 3 songs have made it in the top 10. Catch the show on holysyncradio.com at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time.
We're so glad you're here. Today we're talking about surrender before the song. We're diving into surrender, heart posture, worship, and why alignment with God begins inside of us long before the music ever starts. This one's personal. So wherever you're listening from, driving, working, walking, sitting at home, lean in, get close.
Yeah, before we even get into this, I want to say something clearly. These podcasts are personal reflections. When I sit down to record, I'm usually still processing something God has been working on in me. So if something sounds harsh, it struck me first. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, maybe pass it along to someone who may need it. But this is heart work. And surrender is something we're always going to talk about here because it's not a one-time prayer. It's a daily decision. And surrender doesn't just mean saying, God, I surrender. It means getting on your knees. It means pouring your heart out. It means asking God to check the places you don't want checked, the hidden pride, the quiet resentment, the anxiety you say you've handled, the control you don't want to admit you're holding on to. There's a verse that I always reflect back on. It's Psalms 139, verse 23, which says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." That's surrender. That's not surface Christianity. That's saying, God, look at the stuff I'm avoiding.
That prayer feels vulnerable. Most people pray for blessing or breakthrough, but that prayer is asking God to expose something. Why do you think we avoid that kind of surrender?
Because it threatens control, and control feels safe. I heard this recently. Most of us ask God to change our situation before we ask Him to change our heart. That hit me because the situation might not change immediately, but if the heart shifts, everything feels different. Control says, let me manage this. Surrender says, God, examine this. And that's uncomfortable.
So surrender isn't weakness?
No, not at all. Defeat says, I can't. Surrender says, God, you can. There's strength in handing something over. My pastor says that. Alignments come before assignments. God cares more about your posture than your performance. Before ministry, before serving, before the sermon, there's alignment. And worship is where that alignment happens.
So let's be honest. Sometimes the style isn't your preference. Sometimes you don't feel anything. Sometimes it's not the songs you expected. What do you say to someone who says, I just didn't feel it today?
I'm glad you asked that because I've dealt with that. Remember when we were invited to a Sunday night worship gathering? And before we went, I called Cece and asked what songs would we be singing tonight, and she told me. So I practiced them. I went over them. I made sure I knew them. In my mind, I was preparing to worship. I thought I was ready, but when we got there, the lady leading worship changed the songs. She went a completely different direction. Older songs, different flow. And I remember standing there thinking, why would she do that? I practiced those other songs. This isn't what we talked about. And for about 30 minutes, I was fighting internally, not with her, with myself, because I wasn't worshiping. I was evaluating. I had already decided what worship should look like. And when it didn't match my expectation, I resisted it. And here's the humbling part. God was still there. He didn't withhold his presence. He didn't leave because the set list changed. He waited. He waited for my heart to let go of control. I realized I missed most of that worship moment. Not because God wasn't moving, but because I was holding on to my plan. That night I learned something deep. Worship isn't about whether you felt something, it's about whether you released something. And I didn't release anything for 30 minutes. I held on to expectation, preparation, control. And the moment I finally said, okay, God, this isn't about me, it's about my posture. Peace came, not because the music changed, because I did.
So it wasn't the worship that was off, it was your posture.
Exactly. And that's humbling to admit. But it's freeing, because breakthrough isn't dependent on the set list. It's dependent on surrender. And let me say this gently. If you can criticize worship more easily than you can surrender into worship, that might be the issue. because it's easier to evaluate a song than to let God evaluate your heart. And sometimes we call it preference when it's really resistance. That's not condemnation, that's awareness.
So, how does someone know if they've actually surrendered something?
Here's a simple test. If you're constantly rehearsing the offense, if your mind keeps replaying the conversation, if anxiety dominates your thoughts, if you feel like you have to manage every detail, that area probably hasn't been surrendered yet, because surrendered things don't dominate you. They're entrusted. There's another saying that stayed with me. Anxiety is often the signal that control is still present. That doesn't mean you're failing it. It means there's something God is inviting you to hand over to Him. Maybe the reason worship matters so much is because it reminds us weekly that we were never meant to carry everything. We walk in with noise in our heads, pressure in our chest, control in our hands, and God invites us to unclench, not perform, not impress, not evaluate, just release. Search me, O God. Psalms 139, verse 23. That prayer isn't dramatic, it's honest, and honesty is where healing begins. Worship isn't about whether you felt something, it's about whether you released something. Did you release the offense, the anxiety, the need to control? Because when you release, you make room for peace, room for clarity, room for the word to sink in. Maybe right now, wherever you're listening, you don't need a long prayer. Maybe you just need a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Take a deep breath and just say, God, take control. Search me. Show me what I'm holding. I don't want to carry this anymore. You don't have to fix it right now. You just have to release it and let God carry what you can't. Control feels strong, but it's heavy. Surrender feels vulnerable, but it's freeing. And maybe the breakthrough you're waiting for isn't in a louder song, it's in a softer heart.
That's so good.
This is Holy Sync Radio.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. If this conversation encouraged you, share it with someone who might need it. New episodes drop every Saturday. You can find us at www.holysyncradio.com and on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Also available on the Apple app for download. Until next time,
Keep your heart soft and stay in sync.
and remember,
God loves you.